David Harper had seen it all, or so he thought. 15 years of testing employees, 15 years of catching every one of them, taking the money he left as a trap in his master bedroom. None had ever resisted. None had ever shown a shred of integrity. But today, as Lila Morgan stepped softly into the Harper Estate's grandmaster bedroom, David held his breath behind the slightly ajar door. $18,000 lay in neat stacks on the polished dresser. He expected greed, deceit, the predictable failure of human nature. What happened next shattered every expectation. Lila didn't pocket a single bill. Instead, she carefully counted each one, organized them, and wrote a note, $18,000 found in dresser. Then, closing her eyes, she whispered, "Thank you, God, for giving me an honest job. Help me always do what is right." In that moment, the cold, cynical world David had built around himself began to crumble. It wasn't carelessness. It was a calculated test, a trap he had perfected over 15 years. Every new employee, from housekeepers to gardeners, from chefs to personal assistants, had faced it, and every single one had failed. Without exception, the money had disappeared by the end of the day. David, 38, a real estate magnate with a mansion overlooking Aspen, Colorado, had lost faith in people long ago. Trust to him was a currency more fragile than the bills he scattered so carelessly. Today, a new test was about to begin. Lila Morgan, the new housekeeper, had arrived earlier that morning. She was 33, dressed simply in a modest uniform, and worn sneakers, carrying herself with quiet dignity. David greeted her personally, his tall frame filling the doorway. "Ms. Morgan, welcome. Let's get started." He led her through the sprawling Harper estate, explaining her responsibilities: a general cleaning 3 times a week with special attention to the upper floor, particularly the master bedroom. Lila listened carefully, nodding respectfully. "Understood, sir. I will take care of everything diligently." David watched as she climbed the staircase, her footsteps soft against the polished wood. He slipped behind the slightly ajar door of the master bedroom, his pulse quickening. The moment of truth was here. For 15 years, he had witnessed human greed in its rawest form, and now he wondered if Lila would follow the same predictable path. She entered the room, and her eyes immediately caught the sight of the money. The dresser gleamed beneath the morning sunlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and there it was, $18,000, spread in neat stacks. Lila's hand trembled slightly as she held the cleaning spray. A bottle slipped from her grasp and clattered to the floor. David's knuckles whitened as he clenched his fist, bracing himself for another betrayal. But what happened next was something he had never imagined. Instead of pocketing a single bill, Lila carefully picked up each stack, smoothing the edges, separating the denominations, and counting them softly under her breath. 100, 200, 300. She retrieved a notepad from her pocket and scribbled $18,000 found in dresser. Then she carefully stacked the bills in the center of the dresser. Closing her eyes for a moment, she whispered, "Thank you, God, for giving me an honest job. Help me always do what is right." David froze, unable to breathe, his entire worldview shaking in that moment. For the first time in 15 years, someone had resisted the test, not out of fear, but out of integrity and gratitude. Lila went about her work as if nothing had happened, dusting the nightstands, arranging the sheets, folding the blankets with meticulous care. But for David, everything had changed. He realized that the world he had built his judgments on, one of inevitable dishonesty, might not be entirely true. 2 hours later, she knocked on the office door. "Mr. Harper, I've finished upstairs. Is there anything else you need?" Her voice was calm, professional, unassuming. David looked at her, studying her posture, her expression. There was no malice, no hint of entitlement, just honesty and dedication. "No, Lila. You've done very well." She smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. "Thank you, sir. Until tomorrow." Over the next few days, David watched as she worked with the same precision and respect. She never cut corners, never complained, never faltered. Curiosity got the better of him. "Lila, why did you choose this work?" he asked quietly one afternoon. She looked up, serene. "Any honest work is worthy, sir. God gave me strength and health. It would be ungrateful not to use them." Her words struck him. In all his years, he had never heard someone speak of labor with such reverence and humility. David decided to test her one more time. He left a wallet containing $500 on the living room table. When Lila found it, she placed it carefully in a drawer and left a note, "Wallet found in living room, secured in safe place." David observed silently. She had passed every test not by luck, not by fear, but by choice. She was honest, truly honest. By the end of the week, David raised her pay in recognition of her exceptional integrity. Lila was surprised. "Sir, I only did my job." David smiled. "Exactly. That is why you are being recognized." The simplicity of her gratitude, the absence of greed, left a mark on him he hadn't expected. That Sunday afternoon, as she organized the shelves in the library, the phone rang. "David, it's me," Madeline said, a familiar voice. Madeline Brooks, David's ex-wife, a former model, sophisticated and self-assured, had left him years ago to live in New York City with a wealthier man. "I made a terrible mistake. I want to come back. Can we talk?" David looked at Lila working silently in the background, counting the money with respect, whispering thanks for the honest work. She had unknowingly changed everything he thought he knew about loyalty, diligence, and character. He hesitated but responded evenly. "When will you arrive Monday morning? I'll stay for a few days." Lila noticed the subtle change in his demeanor. "Is everything okay, sir?" she asked respectfully. "Yes, Lila. You are an exemplary professional," he said, his eyes softening. Lila nodded and returned to her tasks, unaware of the storm brewing in the rest of the house. That evening, David lay awake. Madeline was coming back, ready to sweep him off his feet with charm and sophistication. But standing quietly in the background, counting bills and whispering prayers for honesty, was Lila Morgan. Her actions had challenged his cynicism, shifted the balance of his household, and quietly altered the power dynamics he had long taken for granted. She had become the heart of a silent revolution, one that would test not only loyalty, but also the true measure of character in the face of wealth and ambition. By Monday morning, a luxury car pulled up to the Harper estate. Madeline stepped out with designer luggage radiating confidence. David opened the door and she embraced him warmly. "David, I missed you so much," she cooed. He remained polite but uncomfortable. "Hello, Madeline. I'm glad you're back. Let me help with the bags." Meanwhile, Lila appeared at the kitchen doorway holding cleaning supplies, greeting him respectfully. Madeline's eyes flicked toward her with a mixture of curiosity and subtle disdain, as if sizing up a piece of furniture she had yet to appreciate. The day had begun quietly, but a storm of subtle tensions was brewing. Lila, with her honesty and professionalism, had already altered the course of David's household, and neither she nor David knew just how soon this quiet force would challenge the old hierarchies and expectations. Monday arrived with a tension that seemed to hang in the air like static electricity. Madeline Brooks, David Harper's ex-wife, had orchestrated her return with a precision that left no room for accident. Her plan was subtle yet calculated. She intended to expose Lila Morgan, the quiet, diligent housekeeper, to the sharp scrutiny of Aspen's elite. It was the Harper estate's first birthday celebration for David in years, and every detail had been meticulously plotted. From the moment Lila arrived at 8 a.m., carrying a borrowed, more formal uniform and her hair pulled neatly into a low bun, she sensed the air was different. Madeline greeted her with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good morning, Lila. Today is going to be special. I hope you're ready." Lila nodded, a mixture of nervousness and determination tightening her chest. She had never served at a high-profile social gathering, but she knew she had to rise to the occasion. By late afternoon, the first wave of guests arrived in sleek black SUVs and polished sedans dressed in designer labels and dripping in subtle but unmistakable wealth. Aspen's lawyers, entrepreneurs, physicians, and their elegant spouses filled the great room with soft chatter, laughter, and the faint clink of crystal. Lila moved quietly among them, carrying trays of canapes, collecting empty glasses, and responding to polite queries with calm professionalism. To most, she was an invisible part of the household infrastructure, yet essential. Madeline, however, was very visible. She began planting subtle remarks, her tone dripping with feigned civility. She whispered to clusters of friends, "Have you noticed how some people adapt too well to environments that aren't theirs?" Heads turned. Glances were exchanged. Lila, focused on her task, noticed nothing, unaware that she had already become the center of Madeline's social experiment. As the evening progressed, the tension thickened. Madeline escalated her strategy, subtly highlighting Lila's presence, drawing attention to her every move. And of course, Madeline said aloud to a small circle of high society friends, "Our housekeeper is quite accomplished in her duties." It's fascinating how some people rise so quickly without a formal background. Gasps and murmurs fluttered through the room. Lila's hand paused mid-step, her tray balancing with practiced precision. Her pulse quickened, but her expression remained composed. David observed from a corner a tightening in his jaw. He recognized Madeline's signature, manipulation, the controlled smile, the careful timing, the insinuations masked as civility. She was trying to shame Lila publicly, to undermine the very integrity he had witnessed firsthand. David's heart pounded not out of fear for himself, but for Lila. He had come to trust her, respect her honesty, and now she was about to face an unfair trial before a room full of critics. The crescendo approached. At precisely 8:30 p.m., Madeline clinked her champagne glass, drawing every eye. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice silky and commanding, "thank you for celebrating Mr. Harper tonight. I want to share a little reflection on values and understanding the place of each person in our universe." Her gaze settled squarely on Lila. "Take, for example, our housekeeper. Some might think her role is small and insignificant, but appearances can be deceiving." A hush fell over the room. Lila's hands were steady, her posture dignified, but her heart raced. Every eye was upon her. Madeline pressed, "Do you find your work fulfilling?" Lila met her gaze calmly. "Yes, ma'am. I take pride in doing my job well." The room waited tense, hungry for the moment of humiliation Madeline had planned. "And do you understand your place?" Lila's chin lifted slightly. "I am a housekeeper, ma'am. I respect my role and my responsibilities." Murmurs of approval and skepticism rippled through the crowd. Madeline's tone sharpened her elegance, now veiling a venomous edge. Should a housekeeper aspire to more than her role allows? Should someone from a modest background think she can match others in capability? The question was cruelly rhetorical, meant to humiliate, to expose any trace of imperfection. Lila's response was quiet but unwavering. "Honest work is worthy, ma'am. Everyone has value, no matter their background." The room shifted uncomfortably. David's pulse surged not from anger, but from pride. A small misstep, Lila nearly tripped a tray, wobbling. A few guests chuckled discreetly. Madeline feigned concern. "Be careful, dear. We wouldn't want an accident." Lila's cheeks warmed, but not from shame. Her indignation simmered beneath the surface, restrained by composure and professionalism. David could no longer contain himself. He stepped forward, cutting through the murmurs, his voice firm, yet calm. "Madeline, what are you doing?" The room stilled. David's eyes bore into hers. Clarifying social roles, she asked, feigning innocence. Humiliating someone for no reason, he replied, his tone now cutting through the tension like glass. He gestured toward Lila. "This is the most competent, honorable, and diligent person I have met. Her integrity surpasses half the people in this room." Gasps spread. Some guests whispered in admiration. Others looked embarrassed. Madeline's mask faltered for a moment, her carefully cultivated poise cracking. David's declaration shifted the energy in the room. Lila exhaled quietly, relief washing over her, as David silently affirmed what she already knew in her heart. Honesty and integrity matter more than status or pretension. Madeline, realizing her plan had backfired, attempted to regain control, but the influence she sought over the guests had dissolved. They now saw the truth. Lila's value lay not in her title, but in her unwavering character. The evening wound down. Guests began to leave, some nodding respectfully to Lila, acknowledging her grace under pressure. The house quieted, leaving only David, Lila, and the defeated Madeline. Lila approached David softly. "Thank you for defending me, sir." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You defended yourself. You held your dignity. Today I saw what true character looks like." Lila smiled, gratitude shining in her eyes. "I only did what was right." As the door closed behind Madeline, David realized that some battles are not fought with money or influence, but with respect and integrity. And in this quiet victory, Lila had emerged not just unscathed, but triumphant, her honesty and dedication redefining the standards of a household built on wealth and power. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. Do you think Lila handled the pressure the right way? Would you have been able to stay calm and dignified like Lila under such scrutiny? Do you believe David's defense of Lila will change how others treat employees around him? In the quiet that followed Madeline's departure, the Harper estate felt different, lighter somehow. David Harper sat in his office watching Lila Morgan organize the kitchen shelves with the same meticulous care she had shown all week. The events of the birthday party still echoed in his mind, a reminder of integrity triumphing over manipulation. For the first time in years, he felt a profound sense of hope, not just for his household, but for humanity itself. Lila had proven without fanfare that character could outshine wealth status and even subtle social scheming. David had made a decision. The next morning, he approached Lila with a proposal. "Lila, I want to give you an opportunity beyond housekeeping. I'm opening a small office for a new project, and I need someone I can trust to start as an administrative assistant. With time, training, and dedication, you could grow with the business. I believe in your potential." Lila blinked in surprise, her hands pausing mid-motion. "Sir, I've never worked in an office before," she admitted softly. "That's exactly why I want you," David said with a small smile. "I'll guide you. You'll learn as you go." "Do you accept?" Her heart raced. This was a real chance, the kind most people only dream of. "Yes, sir," she said, her voice steady despite the excitement that bubbled within her. And so on Monday morning, Lila entered the small office David had rented near Aspen's town center. It was modest, functional, and unassuming, a blank canvas ready for her diligence and determination. She wore simple business attire, neat but modest, her nervous energy tempered by resolve. David showed her the workspace, introduced her to basic procedures, and promised to teach her gradually. The first few weeks were challenging. Lila fumbled with computers, got confused with phone systems, and struggled to manage documents and schedules. Yet she refused to give up. Every evening she stayed late to review her mistakes, practicing and learning, gradually transforming confusion into competence. David watched her progress with admiration. She was not just learning, she was thriving, growing stronger with each task, each challenge. When the company began to expand, Lila was entrusted with training new assistants. Her confidence soared, and she became a quiet yet formidable presence in the office. David introduced her to a technical course in administrative management, fully funding it, knowing it would equip her for greater responsibilities. Nights were spent studying, mornings at work, and slowly the office began to reflect her dedication, organized, efficient, and vibrant. Months passed, and the office's performance soared under her watchful eye. Costs decreased, productivity increased, and client satisfaction skyrocketed. Yet throughout it all, Lila remained humble, respectful, and remarkably kind. Madeline, observing from afar, tried to sow doubt, spreading whispers about favoritism and nepotism. She even contacted a local journalist to undermine Lila's credibility. But when the reporter arrived, the numbers spoke louder than rumors. The office had a 40% increase in productivity, 15% reduction in costs, and 0 complaints from clients. Lila's integrity, work ethic, and results could not be disputed. On the day of the office's grand opening, the tension was palpable. Only a few guests showed up at first, a sign that some of Madeline's whispers had taken hold. Lila, however, remained composed. She presented confidently, answering complex questions about budgeting, operations, and client management with clarity and authority. Each correct answer, each calm response turned skeptical glances into nods of respect. By the end of the event, she had secured contracts and impressed clients who had doubted her mere months ago. Madeline watched, stunned, her plan utterly dismantled by a woman she had underestimated. David approached Lila afterward, pride evident in his eyes. "You've done this on your own," he said quietly. "You've proven yourself beyond any doubt." Lila smiled, a gentle, genuine expression that spoke of both accomplishment and humility. "I only did what I had always believed was right, sir. You gave me the opportunity. I just followed through." In the weeks that followed, Lila's story spread quietly throughout Aspen. From a humble housekeeper to an executive capable of leading and inspiring others, she became a symbol of perseverance, integrity, and the power of giving someone a fair chance. David, too, had learned an invaluable lesson. Wealth and power may command attention, but character, dedication, and honesty command respect. Madeline, faced with the undeniable success of Lila, quietly retreated from her attempts to manipulate or discredit. The contrast between the two women was stark, one fueled by entitlement and deception, the other by integrity and humility. Lila's rise was not just a personal victory, It was a demonstration to everyone in the city that talent and morality could prevail over manipulation and privilege. Months later, Lila was invited to speak at a local professional development seminar. Standing before a room of aspiring professionals, she shared her journey from cleaning the Harper estate to managing a thriving office. She spoke of hard work, honesty, and perseverance. She reminded her audience that it is not where you start, but how you use the opportunities you are given that defines your path. The room erupted in applause, standing ovations echoing through the hall. Lila had not only changed her own life, she had inspired an entire community. David watched from the back of the room, quietly smiling. He had been the one to provide the chance, but it was Lila's courage, diligence, and integrity that had transformed it into something extraordinary. For him, this was a culmination not just of business success, but of faith in the potential of people renewed by witnessing genuine human goodness. In her final conversation with David that evening, Lila turned to him. "Thank you for believing in me, even when I doubted myself." David placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't just meet my expectations, you exceeded every one of them. And more importantly, you reminded me what truly matters." The Harper estate was no longer just a house, it was a testament to the triumph of honesty, diligence, and opportunity. The story of Lila Morgan became one that the city of Aspen would remember for years, a story of integrity prevailing of character, shining through adversity, and of a life transformed through trust and hard work. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. Do you think Lila deserved the opportunities she received? If you were in her shoes, could you have remained as calm and focused under such pressure? Do you believe people like Madeline can change, or are they destined to be left behind by integrity and hard work?